And I have a question for CEO Antle. On page 2 of the CEO report, under the annual comprehensive financial report, the CEO is described as the county's chief budget officer, and the auditor, controller, tax collector is described as the chief accounting officer. Yet when I go to the county website, and this has been updated recently because it shows auditor, controller, tax collector, it shows as the chief financial officer of the county, the auditor controller exercises general supervision over the accounting of all organizations under the control of the Board of Supervisors. Is there any difference in the distinction of chief accounting officer versus chief financial officer? I know some time back we talked about maybe the county needs a chief financial officer. Do we have one now? And the reason I ask is it's been contentious figuring out who is responsible for generating the monthly financial report, the one that I've never seen, incidentally. And I don't know whether it's the auditor or if it's the executive office. I would like to invite the auditor, controller, and the CEO to the September 13th meeting under a properly agendized item to discuss with the board who has the responsibility of generating those monthly reports. And this supervisor doesn't care who does it, just care that it gets done. The public needs to see it, the board needs to make decisions based on up-to-date financials. I see that other counties are able to generate a monthly report. So somehow we have to get there, whether the auditor controller's office does it or if they're short-staffed, maybe they can give access. So CEO Antle, do we have a CFO?
Darcy Antle, CEO. I'm going to need some assistance from County Counsel Christian Curtis on this. What is in statute is Chief Accounting Officer. There is no local ordinance or anything in statute that the Auditor Controller is the Chief Finance Officer, but I will let County Counsel address.
I would just say I'm not familiar with the term being used in statute. We generally stick to what is spelled out in the statute and try to make sure we use those terms in a way that are consistent. I know that the CFO term is common in corporate context. Frankly, I don't know enough about the duties in the corporate context to know how those would overlap and how those would map onto the statutory functions of the county officer.
So maybe it's just a typo, and mistakes happen. I would ask staff to look into it and update it because it's becoming material for the public. Because if we have a CFO, the public will expect that CFO to generate reports, and I don't know if the office wants to commit to that. If not, we should probably follow the state terminology. CEO Antle?
Yes, if I may, I don't know if Auditor Controller Shamise Cubison is on. Perhaps she has some insight. Atlas is shaking his head no.
He says she's not on. And as far as a September 13th item to get to the bottom of where's the accounting data that would be used to generate a report and who can generate the report, is that something the CEO can bring back?
We can certainly work with the clerk of the board. We may have to move some other items to bring that forward.
And does the board support it? Supervisor Jordy?
Yeah.
Okay, unanimous. Direction given. Supervisor Haschek?
Yeah, I do think that what we need to do is sit down and have maybe a workshop on how to get these financial reports and have the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, the financial team from the executive office and the board just kind of figure out how do we get the information that's really needed to show everyone what is really going on with our finances. I think that there would be a good conversation on the 13th. So I certainly approve that. Yeah.
Supervisor McGordy?
So I just wanted to support your move to have a little more transparent financial information, because it's hard for us to make decisions on funding capital improvement projects, on properly paying our employees to reflect the values that we see of them, which we do value them greatly, because obviously without them we don't have a county. So we get hung up when we don't quite know what we've got to work with. And other counties have much more detailed financial information that they're given to the board, and it just makes us better at what we do when we have good information to work with, because otherwise, if you don't have the data, you can't make good decisions.
And I had one final question for CEO Antle related to the financials. What is the definitive source? Where is the data? Is it in this building? Is it in the cloud? What software is it in? If I wanted to ask for a copy of it, what would the label be? I don't think it's Aumentum. I don't think it's Munis. What is it called?
CEO Antle, I believe that would be a question for Auditor Controller Shamise Covison, and Treasurer Tax Collector. I know we use Munis Tyler for budgeting purposes. Where those financials tie out for the ACFR report, I cannot answer.
You don't know?
Don't.
No one on your team knows. No one in this room knows. How is it that we don't know where our financial data is housed? I'm not expecting an answer, but I've been here for about 3.5 years, and if the public asks me, it's embarrassing. I don't know where it is. Is there any chance that it's just in a spreadsheet kicking around in an office? Or, because the board has oversight on the software packages. I've gone through the IT spending, the software that we maintain. I can't find a software package that I believe would house this data.
Darcy Antle, CEO. It is quite possible that we have some spreadsheets and binders that our documents are kept in, but again, it's a question for Auditor Controller.
Thank you. I hope we can get to that on September 13th. Supervisor Haschek.
Well, I think that's the reason why we need to get everyone in the same room and talking, so that we don't just ask these questions and not have the proper people who can answer the questions. So I look forward to this meeting on the 13th, where we can get the Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector talking with the financial team and the board, because it's not, anyway, I'll just leave it at that.
Supervisor McGordy.
So yeah, these are probably legacy problems that, as we kind of moved out of the old accounting era where everything was done on paper and ledger sheets, and into the modern era of software, the learning curve for every time that there was a new generation of software is huge, and I just don't think we've kept up. And the point of our getting together with Treasurer, Tax Collector, Auditor, Controller, Covison isn't to blame anyone. It's to take a look at where are we right now and what do we need, because we want to move forward. We want to be able to answer questions and have data at our fingertips, which we presently don't seem to have the organization for. So, this is a good time because we've made a switch. We're moving into a new era. I think this board is pretty good about not wanting to kick any cans down the road. We'd like to deal with things. It's one of my old sayings: the best way to deal with something is deal with it. Don't just keep getting frustrated. Find a way to resolve the problem.
Any public comment? We have online comments from Auditor Controller Covison.
Good afternoon, Board, Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Shamise Covison. So unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to respond with prepared comments to the questions that continue to come up during supervisors' reports. I'm at the disadvantage of working from home with COVID right now. So it's kind of difficult to follow and comment and respond to all sorts of information that's flying around. And I would really appreciate the opportunity for the budget ad hoc to meet with the Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector to have a more informal discussion about the financials and the financial statements and the audit and how it works with Munis. I know we did have a conversation last week, but apparently we need to have additional conversations. I'm open to that. I'm open to exploring additional possible reporting information. We can look at that, but we need to look at it and consider, what is going to be current, what's not going to be current, if the board and the public will be able to understand those timing differences, or if information will cause more confusion than is already occurring from the lack of information. So I just want to go on record saying that I'm definitely open to working with the budget ad hoc, the board, and the CEO's office to try to come up with some reporting information. But it is a very challenging time right now. I understand the board is looking for timely information, but we're still at an extreme disadvantage from being short-staffed, trying to fill positions and trying to handle all of the impacts from COVID and COVID funding, along with, dispersing a lot of unusual types of revenue that we haven't had to in the past. So there's implications in all departments and on all staff. And so I appreciate the board's patience and their frustration that's being expressed, but we need to work together collaboratively and cooperatively. So I just look forward to doing that, but I hope people can be a little bit patient. I've only been officially in the role for a month, and we need the opportunity to be able to fill positions and to be compliant with our other mandated services and reporting as well. And I totally understand the need for working with the board and the CEO's office to come up with those mechanisms and reporting systems that will allow for better transparency. Thank you.
So, Shamiz, I appreciate you connecting, and to reiterate, because I don't know when you joined us, the CEO will schedule an agenda item for the September 13th meeting. We're hoping that you could join us along with the executive office finance team to figure out how we can generate monthly reports. And Supervisor McGordy pointed out that you're new to the position. This is not on you. You're inheriting a legacy. And to some degree, all the elected officials and staff in general in this county are in that position. But we want to try to move past it and get monthly reports so that the board can make better decisions and we can bolster transparency for the public. So I hope you can make that September 13th meeting. There is a question about what is the definitive source for storing our financial data? When there's a transaction, say a check is cut, is that entered into a software package, and which software?
The county's finance system is the Munis Tyler product, which houses all of the day-to-day revenue and expenditure transactions, along with the depreciation and capital project transactions.
So is it fair to say Munis would be the sole source for generating a report, say year to date?
I think this is a more involved conversation in terms of understanding the intricacies and the differences between the budgeted financial system and finance possible budget to actuals versus the actual ACFR, which is prepared according to generally accepted accounting principles, which may have timing differences that may not be reflected in the Munis finance system because they're required to be presented differently.
So the board can read up a bit before the September 13th meeting. Do we use a software package besides Munis to generate reports? Is there another source of data that you would be using?
Well, the county still relies heavily on Excel for various types of reports and information.
The audio cut out. Could you say the name of that software package?
The county still relies on Excel for many reports.
So
Depends on what the need is.
So do we pull data from Munis into a spreadsheet and then apply? Well, I just want to make sure that we all have time to think about this before we come back a month from now.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I think that what Auditor, Controller, Tax Collector, Treasurer Cubison is asking is that the budget ad hoc meet with her in advance of the September 13th meeting so that the full board can have a presentation. I think that at that time, when the budget ad hoc meets, they'll be able to ask some questions, hopefully some clarifying questions that can then come forward to the board, and then the board and Auditor, Controller, Tax Collector Cubison can have a more robust conversation. I think that it's very late at the end of the day. I think that
I'm happy to move on, but my frustration is I've been asking for 3 years and 8 months, and I'm like kind of losing it on. I just want the data.
We hear that,
So,
I think, but we have a plan
all right,
moving forward.
All right.